I'm at the Office of Fair Trading to highlight a growing problem. Internet and telephone scams are on the increase, and police say that people are being conned out of their savings. I'm with Andrea Tabb, who's the Advice Centre Manager. Now, most of us would say that this sort of thing would never happen to us, but obviously it does, and it's increasing.
Certainly, it can and it does, and it can happen to any of us, really.
And could you give us some examples of the more recent scams that we're seeing over here?
There's all kinds of different scams that are circulating all of the time. Things that people will be more familiar with would be things like the "I'm calling from Microsoft, there's a problem with your PC." That's one that happens very, very frequently. People are becoming very aware of that, but it can still catch people out. Some of the more sinister ones, for example, these type of bank scams that are circulating at the moment, somebody will get a call from the bank. There's a problem with your security or a problem with your account. We need to go through some personal details with you. And for a number of reasons, people are engaging in those discussions and at worst revealing some personal data and losing money as a result. It can happen for a number of reasons. It can be the fraudster is very plausible and therefore the person engages, gets sucked in, gives details, pays money away. Or also it can sometimes just be a pure matter of coincidence. So maybe if I'm having a problem with my bank account and I'm waiting for a call back from the bank, or I'm in some sort of discussion with them and a call comes through coincidentally around about the same time, somebody calling from the bank, and you then get into that discussion. So people do have to be incredibly aware of these kinds of things. It sounds very easy to avoid. It sounds very, oh, I wouldn't get caught out by that. But I can assure everybody there's different types of people, different individuals. It's not something that affects just one type of person. It's something we all need to be incredibly aware of, really. You know, your business should be kept just that, your business. And you're talking there about telephone calls, but there is a big problem now as well on the internet, isn't there, with emails? Absolutely. You know, the internet is a fantastic thing. It's a great medium for all kinds of reasons, but it does have its drawbacks. And email, Facebook, there's all kinds of information out there. People can get emails claiming to be from their bank. They can get emails claiming to be from PayPal. Again, coincidentally, you may well have something on order. You may well be having a problem with your PayPal account, for example. If you then at a certain point in time get an email that you think is genuinely from PayPal and you respond to that and click on that email, you could be divulging all kinds of information, giving card details away, bank details away, personal data away, and it is highly unlikely that email has come from PayPal. So in a nutshell, really what people need to be doing is, if they're getting these kind of calls, they need to be being very firm and fair. I'm not going to enter discussion over the telephone. If you have any doubts, you are waiting for a call back from your bank, go to the telephone directly, go to your bank statement, ring your bank from that known number. Now, before you make a call back, if you're going to use your landline, pick the landline up and make sure that you hear that ringtone, the dial tone, so that the previous call has been disconnected. If people want to be doubly sure, they can maybe use their mobile to make the call to the bank. And that will make sure that if you are using a landline, the line is disconnected, you're not still in a discussion with a potential scammer. Your bank is not going to mind you being extra vigilant with your details and your money. So it's those kind of things that people do have to be aware of. Now, obviously, people are losing their money, their savings, which is hugely distressing. Absolutely. When that happens, worst case scenario, and someone is conned out of their savings, is there any recourse? Would the bank, for example, have any responsibility there? I think it's going to be very dependent on the circumstances, I would say. I think people need to do a number of things. First of all, I think people's gut reaction is not to want to tell anybody. You've been caught out, you may feel foolish, humiliated even for the way the call has taken place, and I would encourage anybody who that has happened to, please don't keep it to yourself, because you know, if people don't know about it, there's less of a chance of, you know, it being brought to a halt. So obviously, if you have any issues, maybe any data's been disclosed or you may be giving bank details away, you do need to tell your bank. The banks now do have very large and internal arrangements with regards fraud and investigating things internally, so that's important. Obviously, people may want to report it to local police, that's something to consider, but also there's the nationwide reporting scheme through Action Fraud on the internet or on the telephone that people could use as well. Now, if people have any doubts about the severity or how people can be sucked in by some of these things. You only have to look at some of the types of scams that are available even going around on our website or the Action Fraud website, or if people, I would encourage people to look at something called thinkjessica.com. That was a website that was introduced as a result of a lady who'd been targeted and conned out of thousands and thousands of pounds despite intervention from her family. So I think it's really important that people are aware of the severity of this problem.
Why is it growing in the way that it is?
I don't think you can attribute to anything particular. I think it's a number of factors. You know, we have more methods of communication available to us now than we ever did. We do our banking through different means, we do our shopping through different means. We've got mobiles, we've got landlines, we've got social media. All these things give us greater opportunities to communicate, but clearly they give somebody else a greater opportunity to use it for means that they weren't intended. And I think generally speaking, people are having busier and busier lives, and another one of these issues relating to scams is you will find people are busy or a little bit unaware, maybe caught on the hop. People having busier lives, different methods of communication available. I think it's a combination of factors really. I don't think you can necessarily just attribute it to one thing.
And finally, you're the advice centre manager. You see more people coming through the doors?
We are seeing, it's basically the one subject we get most calls about essentially. Now that's not to say, I'm not trying to alarm people here and say every person who rings us has lost money. I absolutely must make that clear. But people who do ring us are ringing us to make us aware of something that they've had, make sure we know about it, which is incredibly useful to us because it then means we can have this kind of discussion and make other people aware, which is helpful. But sometimes we do get calls from people who have been caught out, or even people who are maybe on the cusp of getting involved with something, and we can perhaps have a bit of a dialogue with them, give them some general advice, and usually by the end of the call they've had the time to take a deep breath and have a think about it, and often after we've had a conversation with somebody, they've essentially answered their own question, which is, this isn't really something I should be doing, is it? Which is what we want. You know, we would rather have 50 calls a day from people, members of the public in our community saying to us, I've had this, have you heard of it, than have one person who rings and say, I've done this and I've lost money.